Greetings, my beautiful lovelies. Hello, it's Emmy. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be making Budae Jjigae, which is Korean army-based stew. Now, when this was first brought to my attention, it sounded absolutely fascinating, so I am here today to make it because I have never tasted it before. So Budae Jjigae literally translates into army-based stew. It was invented post-Korean War in the 1950s when there was not a lot of food around. And army bases had lots of canned food. American army bases had lots of canned food. So this jjigae, or stew, contains lots of processed foods, canned, prepared foods that were found on the army bases, including baked beans, hot dogs, and Spam. Sounds amazing, right? Absolutely amazing. So I love spicy foods, I love Korean food, and I'm super excited to see this Korean take on using these processed foods, including American cheese. So I looked at a lot of army-based stew recipes, and mine's going to be adapted from Manchi's recipe. If you don't know Manchi, she's the queen of Korean cookery here on YouTube. I'll put a link down in the description. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First things first, we're going to prepare our broth. You're going to need a piece of kelp. In Japanese, this is called kombu. In Korean, I'm not sure. Korean friends, do let me know what this is called in Korean, but this is just a big sheet of kelp. So here's my pot of hot water. I'm gonna add my kelp to that. And I'm going to add 2 dried shiitake mushrooms. These little anchovies are going to give the stock a lot of flavor. We're going to use 8 of them, but we do have to do a little bit of work. We got to take off their heads, and as Manchi says, take out their guts. See this little black part? I'm going to take that part out. So Manchi has a really nice tea basket that she likes to use for making her stock. I'm just going to use my little tea basket holder here. This is definitely makeshift. I'm going to use a little bit of foil and seal it up. Fish are going to break down in the stock, and this way it makes it really easy to remove the fish. Now I'm going to place my little basket of fish in there, and that's going to boil for 25 minutes. Okay, let's go, friends. So while the stock is cooking, we're going to prep our other ingredients. And this is an ingredient we need, and this is Korean vermicelli. These are noodles that are also called glass noodles. They're made out of sweet potato. And they've got kind of this gray color to them. So here are the noodles. We want to let them soak for 30 minutes just in regular water, just so they're nice and soft and ready to be placed into our stew. So let that soak. So next we're going to make our hot pepper paste. This is going to add another layer of flavor to our stew. And here in this bowl I've got 2 tablespoons of water. To that I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of hot chili flakes. Not the kind that you put on pizza, but this kind. This is the Korean chili powder flakes. Look at that color. Gorgeous! 1 tablespoon of gochujang, which is red pepper paste. This stuff is so flavorful. Love it. 1 tablespoon of that. And then we're gonna add 6 cloves of minced garlic. Let me go get my press. Where's my press? I'm gonna use my little squisher. I've cut some of these cloves in half because this press is a little bit small, so don't think I'm adding more than 6 cloves. Although I do love garlic. Yummy, 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 yummy. All right. Can you hear the leaf blower? Yes, spring has sprung, so that means people are maintaining yards. We're gonna mix this into a luscious, beautiful paste. Okay, so while the soup continues to bubble away, we're gonna prep the rest of our ingredients. So we're gonna chop up some cabbage, about a ½ cup, just into little bite-sized pieces. Flake that up a little bit. I'm gonna use 6 green onions. Let me cut the whites in half a little bit so they're a little bit more manageable. Now we're gonna chop, let me get my compost bucket here. My kitchen's smelling good. Okay, dump this into my compost. Okay, that's what this, by the way, is. Sometimes you see this in the background. This is my cauldron of compost. Yes. Okay, now we're ready to cut our tofu. So I cut my vegetables first. Now I'm gonna cut my tofu. Because there's so many ingredients, we don't need too much of any one ingredient. I'm just gonna cut a few slices of that. This is firm tofu. If you ever buy a block of tofu and you need to store it, I recommend putting it in water. Change the water every day and it should last you a few days. And now we're gonna cut our meat. So all this meat is pre-cooked. It's just a matter of getting it cut up. Meat number 1, Spam. I like getting the one that's reduced sodium. All right. There it is, and it's all of its pink beauty. If you haven't seen my Spam musubi video, I highly recommend it. I will put the link there, and there you can actually use the can as a musubi mold. Brilliant, brilliant. So in that video, I learned that if you squeeze the can while inverting it, the Spam likes to come out better. Oh, there it goes, yes. There's our meat. And we're just gonna slice this very thinly because it's very, very salty. Just about 5 slices should be enough. Next I have a hot dog. I'm gonna cut that up into slices. And at the Korean market I found these, and these are little tiny smoked sausages. Fully cooked. And in Manchi's recipe she uses kielbasa, and this is very, very similar to that. Have a nice smoky flavor, but the grind of the meat is a little bit coarser than, say, a hot dog. Alrighty, so I strained my soup, so I took out the anchovies and the kelp, and I've reserved the mushrooms. I'm going to slice those up so we can add those to the stew as well. Delicious shiitake mushrooms. So like Korean barbecue, this stew is cooked in front of you, which is wonderful. I love the idea of cooking together and sharing and imbibing while the food is being made. Love that. So I've got my little portable grill here, and I've got myself a little shallow pot to cook this in. All right, so let's go ahead and start building our stew. We're gonna place our cabbage in the bottom, and our mushrooms, enoki mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, kimchi, oops, 12 rice cakes here, 12 rice cakes, our onions, tofu, here, our Spam, our hot dogs and sausages, baked beans, and of course our seasoning paste. Yes, so beautiful. And our beautiful broth. We're gonna add about 4 cups. Then we're gonna add our sweet potato noodles too. Yes, look how beautiful this is. So 1 slice of cheese right on top. Boop. So everything is starting to simmer and it smells amazing. I can smell the tangy kimchi, the garlic, the chili. Now I'm gonna give everything a little bit of stir. Everyone starts getting friendly in here. Ah, looks so good. Pretty much everything in here is cooked already, except the vegetables and stuff. So it doesn't require a lot of cooking, just basically until our noodles are tender. So I want to break up my tofu, just stir it gently. What a perfect dish for winter, right? It's bubbling. It's like a cauldron, a vat of spicy, rich stew. Okay, now it's really going. So at this point, I'm going to add my watercress. I'm going to save some of it for garnish. And my half block of ramen noodles, instant ramen noodles, right in the middle. These are my favorite samyang hot chicken noodles. I love the texture of the noodles. Oh, I almost forgot. When you're making your stock and you add your dried kelp and you add your dried anchovies and your dried shiitake mushrooms, don't forget to add 1 teaspoon of salt. That will give your broth some flavor. All right, so my Budae Jjigae has been cooking for about 8 minutes and everything looks amazing. The rice cakes look nice and supple and tender. The ramen noodles are done. The glass noodles are done. The cabbage is done. Of course, all the meat's done. It's all pre-cooked. Can't wait to taste this. So Manchi recommends eating this with rice. So I'm gonna get a little bit of everything in my bowl. Wow. All right, mocha. That is fantastic. I love those glass vermicelli noodles. I've had glass noodles before, but these ones are particularly chewy and they absorb all the sauce from the stew. Love those. Let me have some rice cake. The rice cake is fantastic too. It has the same squishy, bouncy texture as mochi. Let me have some of the rice. And the rice absorbs all the stewy sauce as well, and the sauce is fantastic. You distinctly taste the kimchi, which has a great fermented, tangy, cabbagey flavor, full of garlic and chili. Wonderful. I just had some of the sausage, which is great, nice and smoky, kind of porky. Let me try the tofu. And I love what happens when you cook tofu. It gets kind of slippery and squelchy, but still kind of firm. It's the perfect little background for any kind of seasoning that you want to add because it doesn't really have much flavor. But in this case, it just soaks up all the stew broth. Wonderful. Let's try a little bit of Spam. Really salty. Salty and a little bit fatty. It gets softer in texture, and it does lend a good amount of salt to the broth as well. Let's have some vegetable. What happens with the vegetables, you get that fermented kimchi, which is nice and tangy, and then you have the fresh cabbage in there, which is nice and sweet. You get this nice combination of sweet and tangy cabbage. There's a little bit of spice in here as well, but it's just pleasantly spicy. Just a tiny little bit of a background burn, but just enough to kind of warm you up. But you still can taste all the flavors. Love this, love this. I'm gonna have a little bit of meat. So there you have it, Budae Jjigae, army-based stew. Thank you so much, Manchi, for the recipe. Thank you guys so much for suggesting that I make this. And yeah, I hope you guys try it. If you do, share it with me on social media. I'd love to see your results. Share this video with your friends so they can make it too. Follow me on social media, and I shall see you in my next one. Toodaloo, take care, bye! I need a bib.